This is Unhurried, and I'm your host, Doug Kyle. You know, life can feel like a race, rushing to the next thing, never time to reflect. But there is incredible value in slowing down with God to take in His perspective, His presence, His pace. What do many people get all wrong about Mary Magdalene? And why does it matter? This is episode 16 of season 2 of Unhurried. I'm your host, Doug Kyle. Welcome to our listeners and viewers, whichever way you're digesting this. And of course, Ryan, good to have you here again.
Of course.
Our producer is in the house, also now a important contributor to all the things we talk about on this series. So glad to have you here. We're taking a deeper dive into the things that we talk about on Sunday morning, and that's what Unhurried is meant to do. By the way, we called this Unhurried.
Yeah.
And as far as, when we started, there was no other podcast called Unhurried. There was one called Unheard.
Yes.
That sometimes when I asked Alexa to play Unhurried, she brought up this random podcast called Unheard, which to me is a bad name for a podcast. Unheard, you want it to be heard, I would guess.
Right.
But now there is another one called Unhurried.
Yes, there is. Yes.
So,
it doesn't have Doug Kyle.
Well, it doesn't have the with Doug Kyle part, but you might have trouble finding us now. So make sure you do the right one. I don't know anything about the other one. It might be great too, but I can't endorse that one.
Right. I can't either. I don't know. I just know it popped up on my Instagram feed.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I guess somebody, it's a great name for a podcast.
It is a good name, apparently so good that others are stealing it.
Yes, for sure. So I don't know anything about it, you know what I mean? But what ours is Unhurried with Doug Kyle. So
follow that one.
That's
the one we want you to listen to. Anyway, today we're going to talk about what many people get wrong about Mary Magdalene. Actually, she's a kind of a confusing character and been misunderstood throughout the centuries, and why that matters to us as believers. But Ryan, first of all, we're a couple days away from Sunday now. Today's Tuesday as we're recording this, but you got a new guitar and you were playing it on Sunday morning.
I did, yes.
I have to say that, have to admit that I did not notice.
That's the point, is that I when we look at things on the stage, I don't want it to be too distracting. You know what I mean? The point is not the new things that we have. The point is, to lead people to Christ and worship in that way. And so, I don't want to be distracting.
But somebody did notice.
Somebody did.
So there's what happened?
So someone comes up to me after service and they go, I was like, Happy Easter and, good morning and stuff. And they're like, is that a new guitar? And already I was like, oh, did we just become best friends?
You noticed my guitar? What?
I was like, you noticed? I was like, that's so cool. So I unplug it immediately and I go to take it off my shoulders, to hand to him to play.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of, a funny interaction, because it was like, it's not a loaded, grenade or anything like that. But he was like, are you handing this to me right now? And I was like, yeah.
He was afraid to take it.
Yes. And I was like, do you want to play? Like, I was like, here, like, just play it, like while we, chat about my new guitar.
Yeah.
So
did he play it?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. So
All
I was
right.
like, I don't know. I think, instruments are supposed to be played. So the more people that can play them,
he must have thought, this is your brand new guitar. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. It's like getting a brand new car and then giving someone the keys to your car and say, hey, take it for a spin.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. The last time I purchased a new instrument was probably over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Was the last time I had ever gone to a store and gone, okay, that's the one that I want, So I was excited already because I was like, this is a new, my new toy, basically.
Yeah.
And then somebody was like, noticed, and I was like, oh, well, you got to play it now. Like I have to hear somebody else play this now. You know what I mean? So, because I always say that, like, you can, when you play musical instruments, it's always fun to hear somebody else play them because it's like I know what my hands sound like. You know what I mean? Like I know what it sounds like from my perspective, and I don't always get to hear it from another perspective. So, I was like, I wanted to hear somebody else play it, because I've only heard myself play it, so.
And they must have been a musician and tuned into that.
For sure.
There's no way you notice that unless that's kind of, you've got kind of an inclination towards that anyway.
Oh, for sure. That's why I was saying when he came up to me and he's like, oh, new guitar. And I was like, we're instant best friends now. Like, where are we going to lunch? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, let's do this. Like, when's the jam start?
I love it. I love it. Well, we look forward to whoever he is, seeing him in the worship band.
For sure.
Maybe
yeah,
one
hopefully
of these days.
soon.
Yeah. So, well, Ryan, I've got an update on our merch mugs.
Cool.
Our merch mugs. If you're watching this, I've got it right here. It's the Unhurried mug. We've been talking about this for a few weeks, but last week we talked about how they were here.
Yeah.
And we also gave people the opportunity, if they're listening, only the listeners to our podcast or viewers, it was kind of a free gift for them. And we gave away a ton of these on Sunday morning. Did you give away some too?
I did too. Yes, I gave away some, and it was the funniest interaction was I was talking to someone, and then someone comes up to me, in passing, and goes, she's like, I need a mug right now, right now. And so I go, okay. So, in Easter Sundays are always busy, but then Easter Sunday is even more busy. Right. And then, so I run into the office and I grab one and she goes, I didn't really mean to talk to you that way. She goes, I just wanted to make sure I got one. And I go, I totally understand. I go, I get it. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to be the squeaky wheel. You know what I mean? So
I was getting the same thing because we told them last week in the podcast, we said, I don't know, it just sort of developed this way. We said, what are they going to have to do to know that they listen? And we said, just have them come up to us and say, good morning. Now give me my mug. Yeah. Give me my mug. And so I had like several people just come up like pretty, like the same thing, pretty forceful, and like directive going, hey, good morning. Give me my mug.
Yeah.
And then they immediately were apologetic. They were like, God, they didn't like the way it sounded. They come up demanding their mug, but that's what we told them to do. So
yes.
Good for them.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
So if you still want one, there's some left.
Sure.
And just come up to us, either Ryan or myself, on Sunday morning. If you live outside of the area, just send us an email, and we will get one to you.
Yeah.
But you have to say, good morning, give me my mug.
I got someone, my funniest interaction was I got someone, a middle school boy came up to me and he said, I need to get a mug. And I was like, do you drink coffee? And I was like, how? He's like, it's for my mom. I go, okay. All right. I was like, tea maybe, but I was like, coffee, dude? Like, I'm like, that's a little young.
I had a middle school. Maybe he got both of us.
Who knows? Did he get both of us?
I don't know.
That's funny.
I love it. He's walking out here with two mugs. All right. Yeah. But the plan was working because I saw several people walking around the lobby with their mugs.
Yeah.
And people would come up to them. They told me, people would come up to me and go, where'd you get the mug? Where'd you get the mug? Yeah. And they all followed the instructions perfectly. They said, you have to listen to the podcast. It's the only way you know how to get the mug. So the word is out. So if you already have a mug and you can bring it on Sunday morning, fill it up.
Sure.
It actually holds more coffee than our paper cups do. So, hey, there's an advantage right there.
Yeah,
get a little more coffee at the coffee counter.
Yeah.
And walk around with it. Then people will hopefully ask you the question.
Yeah. Yeah. I figure out how to get it to the out of towners. We don't have a lot of out of town listeners.
How are we going to do it?
I don't know.
Oh, we have to figure it out.
We have to figure it out, So, yeah. Because I know we have a out of towner in Whittier, but, I know her. She's my mom.
Your mom. Yeah.
I can just drive it up to her.
Yeah, Mother's Day is coming up. I think you're gonna. It's a good gift.
It is a good. Do we just come up with that right now? Nice.
My mom. Maybe she doesn't listen to this one. She listens to a lot of them. Yeah. Hopefully she misses it. So when I wrap it up for Mother's Day,
surprise,
she'll be like, "This was very, thoughtful."
There you go.
Gift here, Unhurried. It's a great idea.
Yeah,
Cindy. I can get a number of my sister who's a mom.
Yeah,
I can cover a lot.
Unhurried.
Unhurried.
Yeah.
Well, Unhurried is meant to be like sitting down having a cup of coffee together, so the merch mugs are perfectly suited for that. Today, I want to look at Mary Magdalene and kind of take a deeper dive from the message on Sunday, because there we looked at the resurrection account in the Gospel of John, and Mary Magdalene is sort of zoomed in on. It's kind of a very tight camera shot
Hmm.
on her and her experience that Easter morning, that first Easter
Right.
morning. She was, she was devastated. It's really a very poignant look into her life, and we kind of unpacked that a little bit, and then talked about the difference that it meant for her to come face to face with the risen Jesus. But she's kind of a misunderstood character, and so I want to like go into that a little bit, because I think it's important for us to understand her, because if we do, we will. I think she has some real lessons for us today as well.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm not going to cover too much more of the Easter message, because who knows, people can be listening to this in June or September, and I want the podcast to sort of have this long shelf life, that it can kind of speak to us any season, any part of the year. But of course, the resurrection is timeless. So this is a topic that certainly applies no matter what time of the year it is. But in the message, I also mentioned that I dropped my keys in the garbage disposal.
Yeah.
And if you are a longtime podcast listener, I actually shared that story in a podcast,
Yeah,
like about
yeah.
a year ago or
Yeah. I
10
remember.
months ago or something like that. I've never shared it on Sunday morning, but I did share it on in a podcast. So if you were listening to both, an old podcast as well as Sunday morning, you might have said, "Hey, I think I've heard that before." Well, you heard it here.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
where you heard it. That's
Cool.
where our podcast listeners get the inside scoop. They get kind of ahead of time some of the information, and we, if it lands, because I did get some comments about that, then who knows? Maybe I'll use it in a sermon. I'm also learning what I shouldn't use in a sermon too in this podcast.
The podcast, it's a way to get out the ideas,
Yeah.
see how people react to them, and then go, maybe I won't share.
Yeah,
that,
maybe that's that should never be in a sermon.
Yeah.
So
Were people concerned that your keys were found in the garbage disposal?
they were.
Yeah.
They were. First service, I didn't mention that Cindy found them by turning the garbage disposal on.
Oh, right.
And
right.
that's kind of an important part
Yes,
too, because
yeah.
that's how they got all bent and everything. And so
Right.
second service, I mentioned that too. And people kind of gasped when I said that. It's like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm always I know it's not on, but I'm always so scared of the garbage disposal.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like this unknown thing
Yeah.
in the sink, and I just
Yeah.
I'm always so afraid of it.
I'm always it's funny. I'm always like, before I turn it on, I reach down to see if there's a spoon or something in there,
Right.
or apparently now car keys.
No, yeah.
And even though it's not on, that's is that what you're talking about?
Yes,
That's what's
yes.
scary. Like if
Yes.
I have to reach down there, but it's like I know it's not on, but
Right.
still
But still.
I do like my fingers, and I don't want to lose them.
Yeah. Or anytime you have to like fix it, like because it gets like stuck or whatever, you have to like at least ours is old, so we have like a tool.
Oh yeah.
You have to crank.
Yeah.
And
I know
I'm
what you're talking about.
I'm always just like, every time I have to go underneath the kitchen sink, I'm always like so scared. Like I'm just like, I don't want to be down here. You
Yeah.
know, like I'm just like, oh no, but oh well, we need it. So,
We need it. Well, that was that the whole point of that is sometimes the story was sometimes what you're looking for is closer than you think. And that's what
Right.
Mary Magdalene, what she was looking for was Jesus, who she was looking for, and he was closer than she thought as well.
Yeah.
I said that she is often misunderstood. So how is that? Well, I think the biggest way is that people, if you mention her or they think about her, they think that she was a prostitute.
Yeah.
That's sort of the lore around her, is that she had been a prostitute, and that Jesus had changed her life, had met her and forgiven her and changed her life. But there's no evidence at all in the New Testament that Mary Magdalene was ever a prostitute. We do know, and I'll talk about this in a moment, that she was tormented by demons, and so that is addressed, but nothing more about her past life. Pope Gregory the First, all the way back in the 6th century, gave a sermon where he said that Mary Magdalene was the same as the unnamed woman in Luke 7 who we're told lived a sinful life. Even
Right.
that doesn't say that she was a prostitute. But ever since then, that sermon where he kind of connected the two individuals, it's been sort of the idea that the two were the same and that the sinful woman was a prostitute, therefore the logic goes Mary Magdalene
Right.
was. But there's no reason to, first of all, to say they're the same woman. In fact, if you look closely, there's lots of reasons to say they weren't the same woman. And the Bible never says that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. So that's one thing that I find that all the time. Someone mentioned that to me recently, asking about that. And it's, I don't know why, it's just in our culture. That's kind of how we picture her, or that's the story that has been attached to her, but that's not accurate. Another reason that I think that she's misunderstood is, let's be honest, it's hard to keep track of all the Marys.
There is.
In the New Testament,
there's a lot.
There's every other woman seems to be named Mary. It's sort of like Carol in our church right now.
Yes, it is. Yes.
We have a lot of women named Carol.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what someone's name is, just guess Carol, and you got a 50-50 chance.
Yeah.
But same as in the New Testament, if there's a woman mentioned and you don't know who she is, if you guess Mary, you got it.
You got it right.
Got a good chance of getting it right.
Yeah.
There are at least 6 different Marys that are mentioned in the New Testament. So it's pretty easy to get mixed up who's who, which is which, whose story goes with which one. So I think that's a honest mistake that just happens as you're trying to keep track of it. Even as I was kind of doing some research in the Bible on Mary Magdalene to kind of talk to you guys today, I realized you have to go so many different places to put the whole story together. It's not like, well, here's one a couple paragraphs that kind of describe it all. You're really all over the place to find it, and then there's a dozen other Marys to consider as well.
Right. Yeah.
So that adds to the confusion. But I think also more recently, because of the fictional book and then movie, The Da Vinci Code, she has been sort of sensationalized as Jesus' romantic partner. But again, there's zero biblical evidence for that. And the Gospels show her she was a deeply devoted follower, but there's no romance whatsoever. Matter of fact, I think that is a great distortion of what the New Testament does teach about both Mary as well as Jesus. So, but because of that, that's sort of out there in the culture too, is that people are, wondering if that's the case as well.
Right.
And of course it's not. And finally, I think one of the reasons that we're confused about her a little bit is because it's so easy for us as believers to just focus on the 12 disciples. And we overlooked that there were actually several women disciples who were just as involved, just as much a part of the band of individuals that followed Jesus here on earth.
Right.
Before I'm done, I'm going to show you just how involved she was. But she was a key part of that group, and I think those misunderstandings sort of cloud the beauty of Mary's story, and they keep us from seeing who is this person that was arguably one of the best examples for us of what it means to follow Christ as well.
Sure. Well, it was just so much a part of Jesus's ministry too, to have the women involved, and especially at that time in our world where women were not elevated to the same level, and how important not only this Mary but all the other Marys played a significant role too, and all the other women, in the Bible too.
It's probably one of the things that we admire most, or should admire most, about Jesus is just how he included those whose society and culture had looked down upon and discounted and overlooked and mistreated. He included those tax collectors and prostitutes, even though Mary wasn't one.
Right.
And
as we talked about last week, children. At that time,
children
in that
were
world.
discounted.
Yeah.
Women, And he had the ability to see people for who they were
Yeah.
and not how culture defined them.
Right. Well, he saw people, and as we should see, or taught us how to see people, that our identity is found in Christ, is found in God, and so therefore we are all brothers and sisters in Christ. We do this walk together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's right. That's right. I was going to have a sticky note on my computer today.
Sure.
And it was going to have the word absolutely on it with a circle and a line crossed through it, because I feel like I say absolutely too much.
Do you really?
On this,
That's funny.
I hear myself saying every time I say absolutely, I go, see, Doug, you find a different word. But maybe it's just because I agree with you so much. I have to say absolutely.
Maybe. I also found that I say a lot of things too, so, it just happens, I think.
Yeah.
When you talk as much as you do, I think you're gonna repeat certain words,
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's part of this being a little more off the cuff.
There you go.
Is that we just, you just say things the way you say things.
You just go for it. Yeah, exactly.
Well, so, let's talk about who she was, because if we can remove some of these misconceptions, we're still left with the question, well, tell me about what the Bible does say about her. And again, I want to point out why she can be such a great model and example for me. But first, I want to get some further confusion out of the way. Someone asked me about this after the message. On Sunday, I pointed out that Mary was all by herself in the Gospel of John, and that's exactly accurate. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. But the other Gospels mention several other women involved. In fact, it's pretty interesting. Matthew mentions two, Mary Magdalene, and also someone that they call the other Mary, which we think is probably the mother of James.
Right.
Mark mentions three. Again, Mary Magdalene is one of them, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome. And then in Luke, there's mention of like five or maybe even more.
Mm-hmm.
There's, again, Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, the mother of James, and then it says, and the other women. So that means that's plural. There's at least two.
Right.
So there could be five or more in Luke. But then John, when we get to the Gospel of John, where we were spending our time on Sunday, it focuses purely on one, Mary Magdalene. So what's interesting is every single gospel mentions Mary Magdalene.
Right.
Even if they do or don't mention others, she's always there.
Consistent.
She made it into every gospel account.
Right.
And
my brother-in-law likes to always say, anytime there's a thing about Luke, the other day we were reading like a little Bible study from my father-in-law and mother-in-law's church. And so it was in Luke, and he's like, what does he know? He wasn't there. But it's like, Amanda and her brothers like went to like Christian school their whole life. So he's very well versed in the Bibles. It just sometimes church Bible humor it just makes me laugh.
Yeah.
I started cracking up. So now every time I see Luke, I can't help but hear his voice. He's going, what does he know? He wasn't there.
Reality is Luke was probably paid the most careful attention.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
Because he wasn't there.
Because he wasn't there. And
so he really did research it. And
all the research that he put into it.
So it kind of makes sense, because Luke would be the one that would say, wait a second, I know, some people are saying this many, some people add this. Who was really there? And he's the one that actually goes in and says, no, list them all, including here's a couple that we don't even know their names, and we'll just call them other women. That were there. He in many ways is the one the most detailed one, giving us all the details.
Right.
So why did John just purely focus on one when there were other women there that morning? Well, just like an eyewitness of a certain event is going to emphasize different parts of the scene, the part that's important to them, the gospel writers are doing the same thing. They have a particular angle that they're trying to present to the story of Jesus and the story of his death and resurrection, and a certain focus that they want us as readers to take. And their accounts are completely complementary, but not conflicting. But they also give us a different feel or a different fresh look at it. That's why if I only had if I had to give 4 different Easter messages, I would give one from each of the Gospels, because each one gives 4 different different angles
Yeah.
on the same event.
Mhm.
And it's, I think for John to focus just on Mary Magdalene is the right call for what he's trying to do, because he wants us to see ourselves in her story, and he wants to really personalize it
Mhm.
for us as well. And so that's what we did on
Mhm.
Sunday too, kind of looking at it through the lens of Mary. And here are 3 things that we can learn from Mary Magdalene that I think are interesting. I kind of mentioned this first one, but I want to go a little more deep into it. Both Luke and Mark mention that Jesus delivered Mary from 7 demons. And so she had this radical conversion.
Mhm.
Her life had been tortured, had been tormented, had been hell on earth, probably in many ways. And Jesus recognized that. He released her from that. He set her free from it, and it was a life changing moment for her. And I think the fact that that's true of her, because we don't know all of the backstories of the 12 disciples. Some we know more of, others we don't know really very little. But knowing this about this disciple, about Mary Magdalene, it tells us that she was that for us, we can never be too far from the grace of God. It
Right.
doesn't
Yeah.
matter where you are. It doesn't matter. And, even as people are listening to this right now, maybe you're feeling broken. Maybe you're feeling like you've disappointed God. Maybe you feel like, you're out of the reach of God. And uh, who knows? Maybe someone was trying to listen to the other Unhurried podcast, which is about finances or economy, whatever it's about, who knows? And they got ours instead.
Right.
And they're listening to this and they're going, that's me. I never thought about God and being that available to me and that able to transform me. But Mary's story is a wonderful story that it doesn't matter how broken your life is.
Mhm.
God can
Mhm.
restore it and heal it and bring it back to wholeness.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I love just the account of kind of looking at it from, I think you said that on Sunday too, where it was like almost like a movie or like a spotlight in a TV
Yeah.
show. It was like, this is her episode and we're getting to kind of get her point of view
Right.
also, which is really cool
Mhm.
how John wrote that, and how we get to now be a part of that, too, and kind of see how she was interacting with the tomb, with the other disciples, with, and then ultimately with Jesus,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's like I imagine like a camera scene that
Yeah.
shows maybe a number of women that were there that morning, and then it zooms in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're just
Yeah.
focused on Mary,
Yeah.
her expression, her words, her tears. We see it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so first of all, we learn from Mary that no one is too broken for Jesus to restore, and his power can transform us completely. The next thing I wanted to point out is that Mary is among the disciples that supported Jesus and his ministry financially. I'm going to read this verse because I think it's overlooked. It's so interesting. In Luke 8, the first 3 verses, it says this: after this, Jesus traveled from one town and village to another, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom of God. It goes on to say the 12 were with him. So that's what we picture. But then I think we forget what the very next words are. Right after that, it says, and also some women who had been cured of evil spirits and diseases, Mary, called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had come out. Then it mentions a couple other women. And then it says this about them. He says, these women were helping to support them out of their own means. So we can imply from that Mary and these other women were also a part of the followers that were there with Jesus, going from place to place. And Mary apparently had access to resources. She was maybe wealthy somehow, or from a family, or for whatever reason, she had access to what the Bible calls as means, and she helped the ministry happen. She was completely donating of her own time and goods to help the kingdom of God be established through Jesus. So that's that's a cool part of her story. It says here that she's Mary called Magdalene. That's not her last name. That's her. That's the town she was from.
Right.
She was from Magdala, and so if you're from Magdala, you're called a Magdalene. And back then, a lot of people just had first names, so you had to, describe them based on their family or their town.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's what Magdalene means, by the way. It's kind of her not nationality, but her hometown.
Right.
It's her
Right.
hometown.
Right.
And so, but what can we learn from that? For us, it means to whom much is given, much is required. Or maybe a different way to put that is the one who is forgiven much loves much. To put ourselves in Mary's sandals and realize, if we think about it, Jesus has done as much for us as he did for her. Maybe different ways, but when we realize how much he's done for us, why wouldn't we just then reciprocate that with our love and our devotion and our contributions and all that we are and all that we have, bring it to him and use that now for his kingdom and for his glory.
Yeah. I just love the part that she was so involved and so supportive of his ministry, because I just know how important like the women in our church play such integral roles
Mm-hmm.
in our church and in our worship ministry, and how important that is for our church to see that you can have men and women supporting and doing ministry together in a healthy way. I
Yeah.
just think that that's such a cool picture to see.
Yeah,
you know,
it really,
And the-
really is.
and the foresight. I mean, obviously, Jesus, had a very ultimate plan, that we're all living, even today, but even all the way back then, just seeing that all the way through, and how important, women would be in our society and also in our, families and our cultures and our churches. Like, it's awesome to see,
Yeah, Jesus was really, in many ways, breaking the cultural standards
Yes.
by what he was doing, and he set the tone
Yes.
in many ways for us experiencing a much more healthy experience today because of that.
For sure.
And it becomes so Mary, in this second point, becomes an example to both men and women that if Jesus has done something for you, why wouldn't you reciprocate that with service and love and devotion and support, all that you can do? And when we realize how much he has done for us, then we will return it with giving everything. So again, Mary Magdalene, incredible example of someone whose life had been transformed, and she reciprocated that. But my final thing, I wasn't sure exactly how to put this, but I think this is how I want to say it. I want to say she got first place in so many ways that matter. And I think this is maybe the most intriguing thing about Mary, and to me, the thing that just floors me. Let me just mention some of the ways that she was first. She was one of the few individuals who were at the cross. We know that the only of the 12 disciples that was there was John. Then there was Mary, his mother, his aunt, and there was Mary Magdalene. So she was three women, one guy, were there at the cross, and she was one of them. She also, we're told, witnessed the burial. I think this is a really obscure verse, but it's worth bringing out. Matthew 27:61 says, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary were sitting there opposite the tomb. This is when they were burying Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
She was there. So she not only went to the cross, but then she followed him and watched him buried. Again, so this isn't first yet. She's just among the first that were there at the cross and there at the tomb when he was buried. But she was the first one to the tomb on Easter morning, before it was even light.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there were probably several other women there with her, but she was there in the first group. She was also, if you think about this, she was the first one to see Jesus risen. That was what we kind of covered on Sunday morning. She got to be the first one to witness him. Of all the people that Jesus could have honored with that, that first appearance, it was Mary of Magdala. It's incredible. And if you here's what I said on Sunday morning, because he greeted her and he said, woman, why are you crying?
Right.
Who are you looking for? And she didn't realize who it was yet. And then he said her name, Mary, and it completely transformed her. And I said this on Sunday. I mean, I think it's incredibly moving that Jesus' first act after rising from the dead isn't to gather a crowd or to throw a celebration. It was to step into someone's pain. And even today, Jesus still asks, why are you crying? Why are you crying? To me, it's not only poignant about Mary, it's poignant about Jesus. That the very first thing he did was to try and dry her tears and comfort her, and now transform her even further by realizing that he was risen from the dead.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show of the grace and just the love that Jesus, had for, his disciples and ultimately for us, and how he is the first one, the first one there to pick us up when we need it the most. So
yeah. That's why I love that John focused on her, because we can put ourselves in her situation so easily.
Yeah, for sure. Completely.
She was also the first one to announce the resurrection. She ran back and told the disciples that he's risen from the dead. She's the first witness, if you will, the first one to announce it. So there at the cross, there at the burial, there on Easter morning, the first one, there to encounter Jesus, first one to risen from the dead, the first one for Jesus to reveal himself to, and then the first one to now go and announce it.
Right.
It's incredible how she had first place in what we consider the core experiences, or I should say the core events that about the Christian life, the death and resurrection of Jesus. And it really is an amazing testimony to actually the validity of the resurrection, that we know about this, about Mary's experience, because there are lots of reasons that the resurrection would stand up in a court of law. But one of the reasons is this, that in a culture, as you mentioned, Ryan, in culture where women were sadly seen as less than men and their testimony not as valid, the fact that the gospel writers included her and actually had her the first witness, was there in all these places. Why would the gospel writers do that in that culture? All of them, in fact. The best answer is because it was true.
Right.
Because that's what happened.
Right. Well, it would have been so counter, it would have been so counterculture to not only to conclude a woman, but then also then to now say that she's the first one.
Right.
That would have flipped culture on its head.
If you're just making up a story to keep this movement going,
sure,
you don't have a woman do that.
No, you don't.
Not in that culture.
No.
You go, that's not going to fly. That's not going to be as acceptable or palatable for our culture.
Right.
But if every one of the gospel writers tells us about Mary's place in the resurrection account and where she was and that her witness to it, the best answer is because that's actually what happened.
Right.
It's actually the truth.
Yeah.
And we have, all these different witnesses telling to exactly the same thing. So it is, her story, not only was she there at these key events, the fact that we're told about it and that Jesus honored that way really is part of what gives us great confidence in the validity of it. And I think for us, what does that mean to us if Mary was in the first place in all of these different parts? I think that God can use us even if we feel unrecognized. God wants to use you, even if you feel like, well, culture doesn't recognize me, or I'm in a group that's, I don't really stand out. God chooses to use those who He chooses to use, and it usually has nothing to do with how other people see us. It has to do with how He sees us and also our availability to that. So it just got me thinking, I should be more of an initiator. I think all of us can be more of an initiator. Take that first step like Mary did. And instead of waiting for the group that you're in to express their devotion or their faith, you can be the first one.
Sure.
You can be the leader in that. At whatever you are in that social setting, why not be the leader? Why not take Mary's example of just saying, I know the disciples, most of them aren't here at the cross. I'm going to go. I know that they're not here at the grave. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And Jesus will reward that. He will. Does that make sense?
Oh,
You know
for
that
sure.
idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like sometimes like people talk about, like good leaders like on sports teams and stuff, and they're always like, oh, first one in, last one out, and it's
Yeah.
like kind of that same mentality, to be the first one there, to be the initiator, to get it going. So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Set the tone. You don't
Yep.
have to wait for the culture to define for you is it okay to express my devotion to Jesus in this situation? Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do
Yeah.
it. Take the lead.
Yeah, for sure.
Be the initiator.
Mhm.
And so I love this. I think she becomes a great model for us in so many ways.
Yeah.
I really like how, going way back several decades now, but how Jesus Christ Superstar shows men and women followers of Jesus. Now in the very popular series, The Chosen,
Mhm.
again, really highlighting that both men and women were followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
And we need to see both. We need to see both both kinds of disciples that Jesus, and learn from both.
Yes.
And
Yes, very much so.
especially Mary, because she, in many ways, is this exemplary disciple for us to see, and I love just thinking about what we misunderstand about her and what's the reality about
Right.
her.
Right. Exactly. Well, and I love that you clarified that too, and so, because I mean, she has such a great story, and to have, such a connection made about her that is not true, it would be, so disheartening to what she actually did experience, and
Yeah.
how pivotal of a character she was, and how devoted she was to Jesus, so.
Yeah, it blurs the reality of
It blurs it. Yes, that was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I feel like it sensationalizes it too, because
Sure.
it's like, oh, if she's a prostitute, ooh,
Yeah.
or if she's romantically interested in Jesus or
Right.
whatever. All of that is tantalizing for us to think about, but it really keeps us from focusing on. It's like it's like the untrue gossip
Yes.
that we're
Yes.
about Mary that we're drawn to, rather than the reality that actually is transformative.
Yes, yes, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, like you said, I mean, she was the first place in so many of our, pillars of our faith, in
Yeah.
our belief in Christ. So yeah, and to, kind of stain that a little bit makes it, I don't know, it just makes it kind of dirty in the sense of it's not true.
It takes away from it.
It takes
for
away
sure.
from it. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully you'll always think about Mary Magdalene now through that lens, and it'll she'll become one of those heroes of faith for us as well.
Yeah.
Last week we added a new feature called Listener Questions, and we got another question for this week.
Cool.
So last week we mentioned that the mugs that we're giving away, these are left-handed friendly. In other words, it has Unhurried on both sides of the mug.
Yeah.
So you can hold it with either your right or left hand and see what it says. And I vented a little bit about living in a right-handed world and me being left-handed, and why, it was really cool to me that these mugs are left-handed friendly. In fact, this is you could have got a collector's mug if you already have one. Some of the mugs actually had stickers on the bottom
Oh.
that said Unhurried, and
I didn't know
they were all supposed to, but we had so many people get them that we actually had to break out some of the ones that didn't have stickers on them yet. So if you got one with a sticker, you also notice that if you hold it with your left hand and you tip it to your mouth, the sticker now is right side up on the back side towards any person that you're having coffee with. So again, left-handed friendly.
There you go.
So that led
There
to
you go.
this very spiritual, deep, theological question that we got this week. And it was simply this: how did I not know you were left-handed?
Yeah.
That was the question.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did I not know you were left-handed? Well,
Mhm.
I actually can't really answer that question for them, how they didn't know. You could answer that question, the listener who asked that, better than I could. But what would be some of the clues other than that the mugs are left-handed friendly?
Yeah.
That I'm left-handed. Can you
Yeah.
think of other clues that they might have picked up on?
Well, I looked up some left-handed facts.
Did you?
Yeah, I did because so when my son was little, okay, this was like, I don't know, a few years ago.
Yeah.
Um,
years and years
years
ago.
and years
like
ago.
He's,
Yeah,
he's
but
6, right?
He's 7.
He's 7. Yeah. When he was
Okay,
little.
so
Yeah.
Yeah, well, my father-in-law used to think it was really funny to hold his right hand like behind his back and then force him to throw
Left-handed.
right?
Yeah.
He's a big baseball guy like yourself.
Why would he think that's funny? Again, making fun of us left-handers. This is what I'm saying.
Not funny because he was saying that if he pursued baseball, that being a left-handed pitcher
Oh, I see.
is
an advantage.
An advantage
All right, so it was a
in that
positive.
sport. So it was a positive in
Yeah.
that sport. But I also looked up left-handed people are actually more creative.
More creative.
Yeah. Yeah.
More percentage of presidents have been left-handed
Yes.
than right-handed.
Yeah.
More creative, better looking.
I'm looking at my research here, and I didn't find that in there.
Yeah, all right. I think they actually don't live as long either. But
Oh, really?
yeah.
No, I didn't find that anywhere.
Yeah,
I didn't find that anywhere.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I hope that's not true.
but no, athletically, left-handed people tend to have a higher advantage because you don't see it all the time. It's like I think 1 out of 10 people or 1 out of 9 people are left-handed. So playing a sport where your left side of your body, either left-footed, even soccer, where you're left-handed is an advantage for you because everyone is so used to either being trained by somebody that was right-handed or they're right-handed themselves.
Yeah.
So being able to do that in a way, you do have a little bit of an advantage. So,
Well, this individual probably has never seen me play sports, so
you're pretty athletic.
Yeah. So that's I guess I can let him off the hook there for not
Yeah.
knowing that I'm left-handed. But here's some clues that he could have picked up on.
Cool.
So if you notice when I speak on Sunday morning, the speaker's table
Yes.
that I use is on my left side.
Yeah, it is.
So that I can grab my Bible or my tea with my left hand.
Yep.
If another speaker comes, they almost always put the table on the right side because they're right-handed. So that would have been a subtle clue.
Sure.
I'm also drinking usually tea on Sunday morning, not coffee, and I usually drink that with my left hand. I gesture a little bit more with my left hand than my right hand. I gesture usually with both hands, but if I notice if I do one hand, it tends to be my my left hand. If you look at a photo of me on the podcast intro,
Yep.
you'll notice I'm holding the microphone in my left hand.
Yes, you are. Yep.
So, yeah, how did you not know I was left-handed? I don't know. There are clues everywhere you look. So, anyway.
That's awesome.
I'm to that listener, I'm going to turn the question around. How did you not know?
How did you not know?
I'm left-handed.
It was so obvious.
Yeah, so obvious. All the clues are there. All right. Well, if you have a question, we are going to try to get it on here. Send it to unhurriedpodcast@gmail.com, or you can just text me or Ryan. Let us know the question. We'll do our best to include it. Hope this has been an encouragement to you. It's been a deeper dive into the message I gave last Sunday from John 20 called The Easter Question, part of the series Jesus Wants to Know. So you can find it there at greenvalleychurch.com. Thanks, Ryan, for all this.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
Your work is just beginning. Now you have to take this and kind of make it palatable for our viewers and listeners.
Yep.
But I appreciate that. Until next time, this has been Unhurried with me, your host, Doug Kyle, and I look forward to talking soon.